As I'm sure most people know by now, Alex Jones just went through a defamation lawsuit and lost. The dude lost. I'll spoil it for you. I'll tell you up front. He owes somewhere around $45 to $50 million currently, and the number may be going up. And we're going to talk about why I'm so happy about that. And we're going to talk about the actual exact numbers and what we have to look forward to in the future. So I'll tell you what, why don't we take a look at this clip? I just want to show you a few highlights of the defamation trial and talk about what it was over, if you're watching this 5 years in the future, how it went, and the most memeable moments. Alex Jones was sued for defamation by the parents of the Sandy Hook victims. Sandy Hook was an attack on an elementary school back in 2012, and Alex Jones propagandized about it and lied and twisted facts and claimed it was a government setup and they were crisis actors and all kinds of sick, twisted stuff. Got his audience whipped up into a blood frenzy, his audience of millions, to the point where these people needed security guards. They had to pay for 24/7 security because Alex Jones's fans were harassing them. He even, I believe, sent out their phone numbers and addresses and everything live on air at one point. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on that. Deeply, deeply depraved behavior. Deeply depraved. What Alex Jones did. This is called stochastic terrorism. Bill O'Reilly is famous for doing this with a doctor who performed abortions named Dr. Tiller. Bill O'Reilly would talk about how evil this guy was and how sick he was and how somebody needed to do something about it. And one day, Dr. Tiller walks out of his church and there's somebody there waiting for him. Bill O'Reilly didn't have to pull the trigger. He just had to get somebody in his audience of millions riled up enough to pull the trigger for him. And it worked. Now that guy is gone. Thanks to Bill O'Reilly. And guess what? Bill O'Reilly faced no consequences for that. Glenn Beck did the exact same thing. Somebody was pulled over on their way to an organization headquarters with weapons in the car because Glenn Beck demonized this organization for so long. I don't even remember what the name of the organization was now. But this is what right-wing figures tend to do. In fairness, left-wing figures have done this too. Not as often in my experience. Either way, it's wrong no matter who's doing it. It's called stochastic terrorism, and it should be illegal. Sadly, Alex Jones was not charged with the criminal offense of stochastic terrorism. That doesn't even exist. But he was ordered to pay $45 to $50 million. And like I said, we're going to take a look at the final amount in a little bit and talk about how it's broken down and everything. But we'll look at the most memeable moments for now. This is Alex Jones on the witness stand in court. He was told to search his phone for any mentions of Sandy Hook and turn it over to the plaintiffs. He claims to have searched his phone and says he didn't find any instances of any discussions of Sandy Hook on his phone. So now, let's walk into this clip with that knowledge in mind. Alex Jones, under oath, claims he searched his phone personally and didn't mention Sandy Hook in any text messages. Listen to this.
Mr. Jones, you know how an iPhone works, right? You've had iPhone text messaging for several years now.
Yeah.
What does it mean if the messages are in blue? Whose messages are those? Whose phone is this taken from?
I don't know whose phone's taken from. I mean, I turned the phone over and said, take the stuff off.
Can I have you look in the very bottom below the very bottom left corner? Is that your phone number?
Yes. So you did get my text messages. And it said you didn't. Nice trick.
Okay, so up to this point, Alex Jones honestly has no idea how he got his text messages. He claimed that he didn't have any texts from Sandy Hook, and they are sitting here looking at the texts. The guy must be freaked out. His stomach must have fallen to his feet in this moment.
And it said you didn't. Nice trick.
I mean, if they have this, what else do they have? He really did not intend for them to ever have this information, ever.
Yes, Mr. Jones.
Oh.
Indeed. You didn't give this text message to me. You don't know where this came from. Do you know where I got this?
No.
Mr. Jones, did you know that 12 days ago, your attorneys messed up and sent me an entire digital copy of your entire cell phone with every text message you've sent for the past 2 years, and when informed, did not take any steps to identify it as privileged or protect it in any way. And as of 2 days ago, it fell free and clear into my possession. And that is how I know you lied to me when you said you didn't have text messages about Sandy Hook. Did you?
Oh boy. That is not good. Oh my God. So, Alex Jones's lawyer accidentally sent an entire copy of Alex Jones's phone to the plaintiffs. His entire phone. 3 years worth of text messages, not just about Sandy Hook, but about everything, including the January 6th stuff. Oh boy, is he hecked. He is in bad shape. And I think he's starting to realize that now. Which, again, I'm glad about. I'm glad that he's screwed on this point. I'm glad that he's going to have to pay all this money. This is a good thing in my mind, because it means he's finally facing consequences. At least some.
Did you know that?
I told you the truth. This is your Perry Mason moment. I gave them my phone.
Yeah, I looked up Perry Mason. Like, what is he talking about, Perry Mason moment? Apparently it's some book about lawyers or something. What does he mean, Perry Mason moment? Is Perry Mason famous for something?
I gave them my phone, and then...
Mr. Jones, you need to answer the question.
No,
Did you know this happened?
No, I didn't know this happened. But, I told you I gave them the phone over.
Just
And
answer the question.
You said in your deposition, you searched your phone. You said you pulled down the text, did the search function for Sandy Hook. That's what you said, Mr. Jones, correct?
And I had several different phones with this number, but I did, yeah. Well, of course, that's...
I had several phones with this number? What? What does that mean? I seriously, deeply doubt it. As far as I know, you can't have multiple phones with one phone number, can you? Your carrier will only allow you to have a single phone linked to a single phone number. Is that right? You can have as many phones as you want, but they have their own phone number.
Why you got it?
No, Mr. Jones, that's not what happened.
My lawyer sent it to you, but I'm hiding it. Okay.
Mr. Jones?
Obviously, when he feels backed into a corner, he gets flippant and sarcastic.
Mr. Jones,
Please just answer questions. There's no question. Mr. Bankston also only asks questions.
Sure.
Yeah, so, ouch. Alex Jones is in really bad shape, and this face right here is the face of somebody who knows he is completely screwed. He has nowhere to go. He is in bad shape, and I am here for it. I am loving every second of it. Interestingly enough, a couple of other people from InfoWars took the stand, too. It wasn't just Alex Jones. This is Owen Schroyer. Sexy name, awful person. He is one of the InfoWars hosts. I watched almost his entire cross-examination, or whatever you would call it. I don't know what you'd call it in this case. I watched him testifying. That's what it was. I watched one of their producers testifying, too, like the whole, 3 hour long thing. And he actually had some pretty interesting stuff to say, too. Apparently, this guy gets paid $120,000 a year for being an Alex Jones InfoWars host. That's pretty good, right? That seems pretty good to me. Although, based on how much Alex Jones makes, maybe he's underpaying him a little bit. Anyway, as I was saying, this host had to take the stand because he spread misinformation, too, about Sandy Hook and about all kinds of other stuff. Listen to this.
You were handed the story while you were on air live. You ran with it, right?
Yes.
You did zero to determine if it was accurate, right?
Correct.
You did no vetting of the story at all, correct?
Correct.
You did nothing to determine if it was a joke or a parody, right? There are video clips in it. You didn't watch them, right?
Correct.
Or you played them.
Correct.
So what they're talking about is some website called 0 Point Now or I think 0 Point Now is the name of it. Anyways, it's just some conspiracy website that isn't known by anybody. It's even smaller than InfoWars. Posted a video that was all clipped together and edited and dubbed over and everything else. And the video that they posted implied that there were questions to be asked about Sandy Hook when there obviously were not. This was as cut and dry a case as you get. And they were looking for some conspiracy to latch onto with Sandy Hook, and they found it. This 0 Point Now website posted this clip that was all bent out of shape and twisted around, and without vetting it, without checking facts, without looking anything up, without even looking at who the author was, Owen Schroyer played the clip live on air and heavily implied that this was proof that Sandy Hook was staged. Listen to further questioning on this subject.
You didn't check the source, right?
You're referring to Zero Hedge?
Right. You didn't check.
Okay, that's not the source. And he's just sitting there like, yeah, I did. This is ridiculous, dude. He doesn't understand what a source is. He doesn't understand the difference between an author and a publisher. He has no idea. And he's a host of a show that broadcasts information to millions of people. He doesn't know literally the first thing about fact-checking. The first thing. He doesn't know the difference between a publisher and an author. Absolutely insane.
You didn't check the source. You didn't check the author.
Well, I mean, I saw it said Zero Hedge on it.
That's not the author. That's not the source. That's just some website. That's the name of some website.
Well, I mean, I saw it said Zero Hedge on it.
Okay, that's the website, right?
Yes.
That's not where it originated from, though, right?
Well, to me it was.
Wasn't the question. It's not where it originated from, right?
Well, it was published on Zero Hedge. That's where I saw it. But obviously, I understand the author was, I believe, something called 0 Point Now.
Right. You think it's his real name?
I doubt it.
Right. So somebody called 0 Point Now writes something on a website called iBankCoin, which is then picked up by Zero Hedge. You do absolutely nothing to determine if any words in this have any accuracy at all, and you play it on air and make comments about it, right?
Yes.
You have no idea who that is, right?
No.
You have no idea if they're a reliable source or not, right?
No.
You've never heard of that person before.
Or at least so, no.
Pseudonym or whatever it may be, right? You definitely never run a story by 0 Point Now before, correct?
I don't believe so.
This was republished, as you said, by a website called Zero Hedge, right?
Yes.
Also, not a reliable source, correct?
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it isn't.
See, that distinction right there is what really fascinates me about this case. Listen to this again.
This was republished, as you said, by a website called Zero Hedge, right?
Yes.
Also, not a reliable source, correct?
Sometimes it is.
The fact that it is sometimes reliable, the fact that his answer contained the word sometimes, means it is not a reliable source. How has he been in this field for so long? How did he raise himself so high up as to be a host on a $1 million news commentary show? And he used the word sometimes in that sentence. This just blows me away. This is so bizarre that his head is here. I just don't get it. He says it's not reliable, and then he responds, sometimes it is.
Right?
Yes.
Also, not a reliable source, correct?
Sometimes it is.
And now the lawyer's going to explain why it's so ridiculous that he even said sometimes it is.
Sometimes it isn't, right?
Perhaps.
So let me ask you this: if you get something from a source and you look and say, this source sometimes is reliable, sometimes they're way out there and unreliable. Isn't it incumbent on you to check it and do some sort of vetting before you put it on air?
Yes, I could have done a better job.
You could have done a job, right? You did nothing. You could have done something, right?
Well, I was live on air at the time, so it was given to me and I covered it.
Is it an excuse to say I didn't have time? Is that an excuse to defamation, to defaming Mr. Heslin? Is that an excuse to you? I just didn't have time?
Can you repeat or rephrase the question?
Yeah, so that's Owen Schroyer. That's who the guy is, and that's really a glimpse into how InfoWars operates as a company. There is no fact-checking taking place. None. It operates exactly like a normal news desk would operate. I mean, it's huge. At one point, I believe that Alex Jones was making $800,000 a day. A day! $800,000 per day. Not per year. Not per month. $800,000 a day. That's what's been reported. And that was at its peak. That's not, like, current from my understanding. That's before they were deplatformed by, like, YouTube and Spotify and everything. That's $300 million a year, dude. I wouldn't be surprised to find that Alex Jones is a billionaire. I don't know. It's really hard to know anything for sure. It's just speculation, but the guy was making sick money. Absolutely sick money. And like I said, it operates like a newsroom, a real full-blown official newsroom, like CNN, MSNBC, even Fox News, the way that it operates. The hosts sit in front of the camera and talk for a certain amount of time. Writers come along and hand them papers, and they read about these papers, and they air clips, and the whole 9 yards. It operates the exact same way. Except in a real newsroom, they expect the writers and the producers to hand them reliable information. The writers and producers weren't doing that at all. And the hosts knew that they weren't doing that. That's where this whole thing got hung up. The hosts were willing to lie, knowingly, obviously, as evidenced by the fact that they lost this defamation suit, and the writers were willing to lie shamelessly, too. They did no fact-checking. That's what he just said. Zero fact-checking. It absolutely blows my mind. So here's the question. After they were deplatformed, how'd they make money? It turns out basically nobody would advertise with them. So let me tell you how YouTube works in generalities. When you watch one of my videos, for example, there are a certain number of ads in each video, right? There's one at the beginning, one at the end, and they have a certain number of mid-rolls. I have nothing to do with the advertisers. I don't communicate with them. I don't even know what ads are running on my stuff. And I have almost no control over which ads run. But YouTube basically installs like cookies on users' computers. Google does this, and they kind of track like what your interests are. Like when you're logged into your Google account, they see the things that you buy on Amazon or whatever else and what you're interested in, and they say, okay, we're going to advertise this item. We know he likes guitars because he just bought a guitar from Amazon, so we're going to advertise guitar picks and strings and amps to him on YouTube. So they'll pop up an advertisement for that stuff on my YouTube video, though I have no idea what's being aired, and I have nothing to do with or no control over any of that stuff. So they're not advertising with me. YouTube isn't. They are advertising to you. Well, Alex Jones lost all of that. That was called targeted advertising. And it made advertising 50 times more profitable to actually be sending out advertisements that people are interested in. Well, Alex Jones lost all of that when he was deplatformed, removed from Twitter and YouTube and everything else. Went to his own show, so his only way of making money was to run his own advertisements and sell his own products. And some of those products that he sells, it's all just a big scam. It's all nonsensical stuff that doesn't do anything for you, but some of the stuff that he sells are like pills, like vitamins and stuff like that, okay? And Owen Schroyer is about to come up here and defend those pills that they sell. Listen to this.
Instahard? That's a pill you guys sell?
I'm not too familiar with the product. It's a new one, but I guess it's a pill.
Okay. Oh, well, I'm sorry.
It is a product, though, that we sell, yes.
Fair enough. Diet Force, something you sell?
Yes.
Do you have any idea where that stuff's sourced from?
Before we continue, Alex Jones has been peddling this stuff for years. It's all just charlatanry and snake oil. It's all useless. And if you need evidence for that claim, this is a picture that Alex Jones popped up on his InfoWars thing, I believe, forever ago, advertising his pills. This is a before and after. Before and 45 days later after using the pills that he sells in an attempt to sell more of them. Do you notice anything? Anything that stands out to you? Of course you don't. They're the same picture practically. There is no difference. It's practically a joke to claim that Alex Jones's pills do absolutely anything for anybody.
Do you have any idea where that stuff's sourced from?
InfoWars Life?
The pills.
You mean the
actual
contents inside the
pills.
ingredients? No.
Yeah. You don't?
No.
Do you know if any of the stuff is approved by the FDA by chance?
I don't.
Do you know if any of it's been tested to see if it's effective or any good at all?
Well, we test the product for ourselves.
You mean you take it?
Yes.
And you're still here, so it must be okay?
Yeah, it works for me.
Another prime example of these people not fact-checking anything, not understanding the scientific method, not understanding how you go about finding truth, like not even the basics. This is how their minds work. This is how they view things. The outside world does not say that this is valuable or useful in any way. And they claim that the reason that the outside world, the FDA, for example, doesn't say that is because they've got it out for Alex Jones or whatever. You know, I could take that. I would be okay if the FDA didn't examine it if they ran clinical trials themselves. Do they? No. They take the pills themselves and anecdotally say, hey, yeah, this works for me. They don't understand the scientific method. They don't understand the meaning of the term fact-checking. They don't understand anything at all, seemingly. Interestingly enough, after Owen Schroyer went out there and basically said, none of this is tested, it's all based on anecdote, I think it works for me, and that's all there is to it. After he says he has no idea where any of the pills come from or any of that stuff, Alex Jones decides to try to peddle the pills to the jury. He probably feels like they were destroying the reputation of the pills. Again, they're snake oil. They're useless. They could be no more than sugar pills. In fact, they probably are sugar pills. Who knows? I have no idea. Do they even list the ingredients? I don't know. Alex Jones decides to try to rehabilitate the reputation of the pills to the jury.
By the top lab recognized in the United States. All we use is put our label on it, so we know it's triple tested, the highest quality, and that's why people love it, because it is the...
Weird. Triple tested, huh? Is that what he said? Triple tested by whom? Because Owen Schroyer just testified under oath that they test the pills themselves, just them. That they're not running clinical trials or any of that stuff. So who's lying here? One of them is not telling the truth.
Because it is the best out there. And I'll give it to Whole Foods, and I'll give it to GNC and others. They've got the same stuff. There's all sorts of crap you can buy at a gas station out there. That's not what ours is.
Okay, I don't know what he's referring to specifically that GNC and Whole Foods carry, but it's snake oil from Alex Jones, and it's snake oil from GNC and Whole Foods too. This stuff doesn't do anything for anybody. It's garbage. If it isn't approved by the FDA for some specific use, I would be skeptical.
I mean, we buy our PQQ and CoQ10 from the Japanese.
Wow, and everybody knows that the Japanese are renowned for their PQQ and OP-Ken. Is that what I don't even know what he called it.
I mean, we buy our PQQ and CoQ10 from the Japanese. I mean, it's the best. costs 5 times what synthetic PQQ and CoQ10 costs.
Okay, I'm extremely skeptical. I don't even know what those things are or what they're for. I would love to see clinical trials, like actual clinical trials on this stuff. Until I see that data, I'm skeptical. He still views himself as a victim in this whole situation. Listen to this.
And she said, I'm going to instruct the jury that you're a liar tomorrow.
The judge. He says the judge said that to him.
I mean, it's unprecedented. Then she ordered my lawyer to violate attorney-client privilege and tell her about our private conversations, which is just unprecedented. I mean, this is like a tour de force of how to violate people's rights. It's unbelievable, and I just feel sorry for everybody, including these whacked out leftists and lawyers and the judge. I mean, they are all just over the deep end and have no idea what they've done. She also made this really weird statement where she said, you believe everything you say is the truth.
Dude, this guy, this is so sad, honestly. It is so sad. Not only does he view himself as a victim in this whole situation, or at the very least want everyone else to view him as a victim, but he was also streaming as he left the court, and he was telling his audience the whole plan. This is his whole diabolical plan to get out of paying the money he owes.
They lie to the jury in the damages portion and say, I got hundreds of millions of dollars. That's why they do this, so they'll come up with some giant judgment on the already guilty Alex Jones that they hope is too big for us to even get a bond on.
There is no guilty or innocent in these cases. I've come to find that this is a civil suit, and as such, you are liable for damages. Guilty or not guilty are criminal charges, not civil offenses. This just shows that the guy doesn't even understand the very, very basics of the situation that he's in. Doesn't understand the basics of fact-checking. Doesn't understand the basics of the scientific method. Doesn't understand the basics of the judicial system. Not even the basics.
To even get a bond on. Well, once you're in bankruptcy, it's all there in the court, and the bonds for the appeals are half your net worth. Well, that isn't going to be very, very much, maybe $1 million, $1.5 million or something, and they're going to try to claim all this other wealth, but it's not true. So then we will be able to continue on with appeals and the rest of it for years, and we will be able to fight these kangaroo courts. And
so here's the bottom line with Alex Jones. The plan is to fight this whole thing in appeals, move money around into shell companies to make your net worth look smaller, file for bankruptcy, anything that he can do to make his net worth look smaller and hide the money that he does have so he doesn't have to pay these people. It's disgusting, dude. He deserves to pay. He deserves to pay these families for what he owes them. So let's talk about exactly what he owes them. This article is on Reuters. By the way, Reuters, fantastic news network. Love Reuters. One of the most trustworthy news websites in existence. Anyway, this article is titled Jury Awards $45.2 million in Punitive Damages in Alex Jones' Sandy Hook trial. August 5th. U.S. conspiracy theorist Alex Jones must pay the parents of a 6-year-old boy killed in the 2012 Sandy Hook massacre $45.2 million in punitive damages, on top of $4.1 million in compensatory damages already awarded for falsely claiming that it was a hoax, a Texas jury decided on Friday. Let me explain. The $4.1 million compensatory basically goes to paying for the security that they had to have because Alex Jones fans were in a blood frenzy ready to find them and attack them. Also, therapy bills or whatever other compensation that they deserved for what he did to them. $45.2 million is what the court felt that they deserved for what he did, slandering them, defaming them, or whatever you want to call it. The parents had sought $145.9 million in punitive damages and $150 million in compensatory damages. Compensatory damages are awarded to cover a plaintiff's suffering and losses. Punitive damages are awarded to punish a defendant's actions. There you go. An attorney for Jones, Federico Andino Reynal, had asked jurors to return a verdict of $270,000 in punitive damages based on the number of hours InfoWars devoted to Sandy Hook coverage. That doesn't make their lives any better. I don't care how many hours he devoted to Sandy Hook. He ruined these people's lives, and he deserves to pay them what they're owed for that. Outside the courthouse, Reynal told reporters the verdict was high, but the Texas law caps punitive damages at $750,000 per plaintiff. Is that true? I'm not sure about that. Reynal later told Reuters he aimed to minimize compensatory damages throughout the trial, knowing there is a cap on punitive damages. We always knew that was going to be a backstop, so the strategy worked, Reynal said, referring to the cap. The punitive damages were put at $4.2 million for Jones defaming Heslin by questioning that he held his son after the attack, and $20.5 million apiece to Heslin and Lewis for mental anguish. We ask that you send a very, very simple message, and that is, stop Alex Jones. Stop the monetization of his misinformation and lies. Wesley Todd Ball, a lawyer for the parents, told jurors on Friday before they began deliberations on punitive damages. Jones sought to distance himself from the conspiracy theories throughout his testimony in the trial, apologizing to the parents and acknowledging that Sandy Hook was 100% real. I'm honestly not completely convinced that he even believes that. I'm not convinced that that's true, what the attorney said. Give me a second, see if I can look that up. This is from BloombergLaw.com. In Texas, there are statutory limits on punitive damages with a per-defendant cap of 2 times the amount of economic damages, plus the amount of non-economic damages found by the jury, the latter part not to exceed $750,000. Judge Maya Guerrera Gamble of the 459th District Court in Travis County may reduce the punitive damages given those caps, and Jones' attorney said immediately after the verdict that they would file a motion to reduce the punitive award. The Texas law protects companies and bad actors like Alex Jones so that they're never going to be punished to the full extent that would be needed to truly deter them from future actions and to teach other people that this is bad behavior, said Carrie Goldberg of the C.A. Goldberg law firm in New York. Texas is unusual. The very purpose of punitive damages gets frustrated when there's a cap, she said. We do not believe punitive damage caps are constitutional as applied to our case and will certainly litigate that issue if necessary, Mark Bankston, one of the plaintiff's attorneys, told Bloomberg Law. So it sounds like there is actually a cap on this. It sounds like it's very possible that Alex Jones will only have to pay $5.6 million total in this lawsuit, I believe. But there are, I could be wrong, so do not quote me on this. I think that there are 2 more lawsuits coming his way by other people for this exact same thing. So anyways, the point is Alex Jones was found liable for damages and now has to pay a lot of money, no matter how much that is. Whether it's $6 million, I don't have $6 million. Do you? That's a lot of money. Whether it's $6 million, $45 million, $50 million, $150 million, who knows? This has been publicized like mad. And everybody now knows, without a shadow of a doubt, Sandy Hook was real, and Alex Jones ruined people's lives for no reason. This is the prime example of stochastic terrorism and why, in my opinion, it should be criminalized. People should go to jail for whipping a crowd into a blood frenzy. Like that, like Alex Jones did. Deeply, deeply wrong. And I'm glad the guy is facing consequences for his lies, finally. Lawrence Lowe, thank you so much for the super chat. I really want to see this bum go to jail for all his lies. Alex Jones is the worst humanity has to offer. Keep up the great work, Big O. Appreciate that. Absolutely agreed. Sadly, he won't be going to jail for what he's done to people's lives. I'm all for free speech, but when it comes to stochastic terrorism, which is exactly what Alex Jones is, a stochastic terrorist, I feel that though it's not part of U.S. law, it should be. He should go to jail for what he's done.